Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
This is Banned from Ringside.
Tonight on the Banned from Ringside podcast, we talk about the Wednesday Night Wars, Timothy Thatcher versus Tommaso Ciampa in a fight pit. The Inner Circle versus the Inner Circle versus the Inner Circle as the main event on AEW and Friends. My co-host Jason Bell and Two Beer Zach Pullman are here, and I'll tell you what.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
It's the 2020 Beefers. That and a whole bunch more tonight on the Banned from Ringside podcast.
I tried, man. I tried.
Ditch that 9 to 5. It's time to feel alive. Hello, Marks. Welcome to the Banned from Ringside podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bill Vagey, a.k.a. Handing Room Only. God, I think that sounds a lot different than old Vice intended it to. And out there in Edwardsville, Illinois, we have Two Beer Zach Pullman. What's going on, Two Beer Zach?
Oh, man, I am so hungover from inauguration celebration. I drank so much last night. And pretty much as soon as this is over, I'm just going to go to bed and sleep like God through the Holocaust because, well, I'm miserable.
Jesus, I've never heard that before. I like that a lot.
I mean, there's so much to unpack there.
A whole lot to unpack. You know, there's only one thing that cures a hangover, don't you, Zach?
Jerking off? I tried.
There you go.
Oh, okay. And to my left, we have Jason Cornelius Bell. What's going on, JCP?
Allow us to bow our heads as I read from the latest edition of the Banned from Ringside podcast, volume 189, chapter 3, verse 14 of the Good Smart saith, hashtag boo the heels. It is all good, baby. Listen, share, subscribe, repeat. Interesting week of wrestling. Not much happening, but there is a couple of nuggets that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to dive into passing out a little flowers, good and bad, for the Beef Awards. I'm excited to see who's got what this year.
Yeah, it's one of the funnest episodes of the year. My wife is upstairs. She heard me and Jason laughing as I was getting the beefer drops ready, and I explained to her that we had the beefers, and she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, beefer, like BFR, like friends of BFR, like beefer. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, "Oh, that's cute."
That sounds about Aaron.
So cute. We're coming at you. It's a beautiful day outside in South St. Louis. It's going to get cold again, but it is one of the funnest episodes of the year where we look back on 12 months, probably the strangest 12 months of wrestling in the history of wrestling, and wrestling is fucking strange.
Yeah.
So, I mean, before we get too far into it, I'm going to tell you about a product that we're selling here out of my house, it's called Bill's Beard Company. My wife is making beard oils. She's making shower bombs for men. It clears up your pores. It smells so good. It also clears up your sinuses. I use them all the time. She is making them. She is customizing beard brushes. So if you got a beard out there, or you have a friend or a loved one who has a beard, hit me up at BFR Bill on Twitter. Hit me up. You can slide into my DMs, and we will talk about, I'm not really sure what the prices are yet. She's probably supposed to let me know that.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
But, and then, Jason, why don't you tell us about F&B Eatery?
F&B Eatery on the corner of 3453 Southampton and Marquette, home of the greatest smash burger you never heard of. So let's alleviate that problem. Follow them on social media, F&B Eatery on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That way you can see it before you actually dive into it, because I'm a type of guy that I like to see what I'm getting ready to get my little grubby hands on. That way it makes my decision making a little more easier. So do yourself a favor, 2 favors. Follow them on social media at F&B Eatery, and then take your ass on in the F&B Eatery, tell her that Banned from Ringside sent you.
Let's get to that 3 counts.
1, 2, 3.
So it's kind of an abridged 3 count tonight, but Jason, why don't you kick us off?
We're going to do the Wednesday Night Wars first for the 1 count this afternoon. A little disappointing on the AEW side. They always can't be home runs. they can be doubles. This felt more like a double to me, setting up things that are going to happen versus finishing up storylines. For me, I'll just keep it brief. The most important thing for me that came out of AEW this week was probably the Kenny Omega Young Bucks angle, where the Bucks have decided they wanted to kind of confront Kenny Omega after what happened last week, where Kenny apparently shunned them off. Don Callis comes in and kind of makes them look like they're the old guard. You know, Kenny doesn't need you anymore. We're trying to move on with the Good Brothers and this new form of the Elite, and that turns into fisticuffs. Said fisticuffs gives Don Callis a nice little reddish, purplish shiner underneath his eye. Kenny Omega sees this, and then he proceeds to go off and start stomping guys backstage. He and the Good Brothers, unfortunately, said guys were not the Young Bucks. So for me, that to me is the biggest issue of what's going on. Where is this storyline going? Because it felt like only 2 or 3 weeks ago we had harmony going on, all things were good, and now subsequently 2 weeks later it feels like the stitches are getting ready to come off the new and improved, I won't say new and improved, but the new Bullet Club. From there, at least for me, the low point of Dynamite last night was the main event, the triple threat match, where I said it last week, where Santana and Ortiz really needed to win this match to kind of reestablish the fact that they are the tag team in the Inner Circle. And unfortunately, they didn't do it. They didn't eat the pin, but they didn't win either. MJF and Jericho end up going over in the main event, which it kind of is what it is, but I'm just not a big fan of using probably your two biggest single stars as a tag team. That kind of reeks of WWE. And number two, more importantly, you have the established tag team in Santana Ortiz, where WWE NXT, better choice of words, kind of played into that, and we'll dive into that in a little bit, where the established tag team won over putting two singles people together. That's the way that I thought AEW should have went last night, and they didn't, and it's a little disappointing. So it kind of leaves, at least for me, Santana Ortiz kind of out there dangling in the wind with really no direction to go.
Zach, what do you think about, in terms of the Inner Circle match, what do you think about Jericho and MJF going over?
I mean, I wasn't super surprised. It gives them the opportunity, because, you know, we have this obvious long-term story of the split of the Inner Circle that's been teased, so it kind of just adds fuel to that fire. If there's, you know, a team with, you know, kind of the two biggest stars on the team, and they have whatever issues, you know, going down the way. So it wasn't super surprising to me, but I mean, I totally agree with Jason's sentiments. But I don't think, like, Santana and Ortiz are like dead. I think they can be heated up again just with another great match. Like, it's all it really takes, because those guys are super talented. But yeah, like, I'm interested to see where the story goes. A lot of this show is long-term storytelling, which is really cool, and it's a departure from what we see in a lot of other companies, unfortunately. And you know, everything from the Adam Page stuff. You know, I was like, oh man, like last week, I'm like, he's joining, right? It's -1's birthday, totally doing it. Doesn't join, and it's even better that he isn't, because it's not like we're not getting that payoff. Like, they delay that payoff. It's almost like AEW, or like they just edge us, and then whenever they finally give it to us, it's even better.
I mean, that's really kind of like, that's really what wrestling should be.
Here.
It really should be. I mean, you really should have to earn your release. Yeah, I just want to say about that match is that Jericho looked bad. Jericho looked old and slow, more hungover than Zach. He looked shitty in that match. Almost to where, like, I think I've mentioned this a few months ago, it kind of seems like Jericho's been phoning it in for a little while. He might have given his last hurrah in terms of physicality during matches in the NJPW matches that were at the end of last year and the beginning of 2019. Jason's giving me a look. I'm not saying he can't have good matches. I'm saying he really can't carry anybody to a good match anymore. And it looked like the other night when he's in the ring with a bunch of dudes that can work, it looked like nobody can carry him to a good match either. I'll tell you who looked great, though. Sammy Guevara.
Agreed.
Looked fucking awesome
Agreed.
in that match. But yeah, I agree. It wasn't surprising. Obviously, they're telling a long-term story, which will probably end with, Jericho going face and MJF turning heel on Jericho, which is fine. It was a fun match. Some other things that happened, not a whole lot happened on this AEW. I think that
Charles Taylor made his debut.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I do like the Charles Taylor as the Butler. I'm a sucker for that type of sports entertainment type stuff.
All right, that was funny.
Miro made Charles.
Yeah, get it right.
Tell Orange Cassidy that now he's his best friend, which I thought was funny. So
interfered in the women's match too. So
yeah, they interfered in the women's match. Looks like we're going to get a cinematic match between Darby Allin, Sting, and Team Taz. That's one way to protect an old guy that's not at the top of his game like Steve Borden is.
I'm not sure if it's going to be cinematic, but I agree with the protecting part of Sting, where whatever this is, if there's no DQ or some sort of way that it can be a bunch of people in the same ring at the same time, that would be the way I can see it. Cinematic would be okay. I wouldn't have a problem with that, though.
Any thoughts on that, Zach?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go. We saw how many terrible Undertaker matches to the point where, like, oh my God, why is he doing it? And then we have the Boneyard match, and it ruled. So I think that there's definitely a place for that. And I think this is it, right? Because who knows what Sting would be like in the ring. It's been so long.
Since Rollins almost killed him.
Yeah. It's been a very long time.
That's what happened. That's what happened, right? Rollins almost killed him. It was like a 4-minute match. I don't remember.
No, it was not like a 4-minute.
No, yes, bullshit. Yes, it was. I guarantee you it was like a 4-minute match. It was
longer than that.
They had 2 matches, I think. Well, you know what? We'll cover that in our Beefers 2017 or whatever that was.
Rewind the tape.
Not really a whole lot else happened on AEW Dynamite. Seidel and Top Flight versus Party Hardy. It looks like Private Party is starting to embrace some of the
heelish, if you will,
the heelness that Matt Hardy has been kind of inferring, and I don't have much else to say about this. We're getting Jurassic Express versus FTR next week.
Well, no, it's Jungle Boy versus Dax Harwood next week, which is fine. We're delaying the actual tag match that you're talking about. Everything is just kind of pointing towards Beach Bash in 2 weeks, where they have matches already kind of announced, ready for that. So the next couple weeks should be the build for that.
I think I just realized why I can't fucking remember those guys' names is because you said his name's Dax Harwood?
Yes, sir.
And that's the guy that was Dash Wilder?
No, that's the guy that was Scott Dawson.
Wait a minute. Who's the guy with the chops?
The chops.
Scott Dawson / Dax Harwood.
See, I thought that was Dash Wilder the entire time.
No, Dash Wilder is Cash Wheeler.
See, how am I supposed to fucking remember that?
You saw me.
Serious?
No, you saw me hesitate.
I know, it's because it's ridiculous. Anyway, let's get on to that 2 counts.
1, 2, 3.
And because Two Beer Zach was out last night pretending that he's 25 again, and
man, he was celebrating, dog.
Yeah, I know.
I stayed in. I wasn't out.
Oh shit!
See, even better.
Okay.
Responsible.
Do you want to take the 2 count then?
No.
Okay. So the 2 counts is NXT Wednesday night, which I thought was an above average NXT. It was pretty good. Starts off with The Way versus Kushida and Leon Ruff. the way with Austin Theory and Johnny Gargano. Turns out Johnny Gargano's a pretty good tag team guy because they looked like a really good tag team, although I was happy to see Kushida and Ruff take the win. Kushida is looking invincible in NXT, and I would like to see him keep moving up. What do you think about that?
No, it's going to be interesting when they do have their title match, how they book that title match. Gargano hasn't been one that's held any title in NXT very long, so you could easily see him coughing it up. You could easily see him retaining out of some fuckery. So, I mean, the match itself is going to be intriguing in that sense. And then on top of it, you got two guys that can go. I think you're going to have a good match. It's just depending on, when and where it's going to happen. I'm signed up for it. I'm ready to go.
Zach, what do you think about Kushida versus Gargano down the line?
Oh, man, it sounds like a dream.
Yeah, it sounds pretty fucking awesome. Kushida looks like a badass, and Johnny Gargano is spectacular in the chicken shit heel role. Next up, we had Karrion Kross versus Ashanti, the Adonis. Karrion Kross continues his build back towards the top. Not much to say about that. Jason, were you surprised that Lucha House Party went over Imperium in the Dusty Rhodes Classic?
Obviously, very surprised. I had them going as one of my Final Four teams. The only reason I'm not going to get too furious about it is Alexander Wolf has returned, so I'm thinking there's a bigger picture for Imperium. But yeah, I'd be lying if I did not say the what the fuck moment didn't happen at least 3 times on NXT, and this was one of them.
Zach, aren't you pretty happy about having Lucha House Party kind of get some TV time, though, and start to look good?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely refreshing, kind of based on how they have been used. I feel like I saw them more live at house shows, of which I think I went to like 2 in the past 2 years than I have on TV. So unless you count chasing the 24/7 title or whatever. But yeah, definitely fun. And I kind of assumed that they would go over just because they're kind of technically main roster guys, even though they are on 205 Live as well, I think. I don't know. I don't watch it. But I feel like they're not going to have a main roster team go out in the first round.
Right. We had a weigh-in. We had a women's tag match. We had a Pete Dunne promo, which is okay.
Yeah, look, I'm ready for the 14th. Fuck it. Let's just announce the match and let's get it on. Shit.
Bronson Reed looks like he's heading towards being a monster babyface run. But then came my favorite part of the show. My favorite part of the show was Legado del Fantasma, Santos del Escobar. comes out and cuts a promo on a bunch of motherfuckers. Lucha House Party gets in there. Legado del Fantasma starts ganging up, and then friend of the show, Kurt Stallion, comes in to make the save. Goes over big. He's yelling at Santos. He's screaming at him. He's all hot and bothered. Very fun to see Kurt Stallion on NXT proper, on television, on your Wednesday night TV. How did you feel, Zach, when you saw Kurt Stallion on TV?
I can't wait to see it.
You stupid.
I did hear about it, and I was pretty stoked because we had a little inkling that they were going to have that match, a month or 2 ago. And I don't know if maybe they had it on 205 Live, but I do remember them.
They didn't. But the other 2 guys beat Kurt Stallion up in the parking lot, so he couldn't have the match.
Gotcha. But yeah, that's awesome, man. It's cool that it's happening next week and gives us something to look forward to.
Yeah, Jason, what you think?
I should have saw this coming, but I didn't. I was still too kind of entranced with Santos Escobar's running down of the current and past champions from NXT proper. So yeah, I was kind of tripping off that. But no, it's amazing to see. Obviously, 205 Live is having some of these Dusty Road matches, and the Kurt Stallion August Gray match is on 205 from last week. So when I go home, I'm going to have to slide in and check that out. But no, personally, it's good to see anybody that we've rubbed shoulders with that has smacked Bill's chest into oblivion do well on WWE's shows, whether it's NXT or moving forward with Dominic Dijakovic, frenemy of the show, who's on obviously Raw. It's good to see anybody that we rub shoulders with succeed and move forward. So yeah, I was surprised, but I shouldn't have been, because the storyline kind of revolves around the fact that Kurt Stallion is still trying to chase down the title.
Plus, he's a great dude. I like seeing good people do well.
No, he's honestly legit a good ass dude.
He's fun. He hung out with us for a while. I just like seeing him on TV proper, and he's got title match next week, which is fucking really cool. I hope they give him some time, and obviously they like him, because he was not signed to WWE very long before he was on 205 Live, and he was not on 205 Live very long before he made the jump to NXT, and now he's got a title shot.
Right.
So Hunter must like him, or
somebody likes him.
Somebody likes him.
Bottom line is, if he wins, we got to get him back on.
I'll tell you what, though, if he loses, he gets to come down to my basement, and I get to chop him.
Okay, yeah, that's yeah. I'm sure that's going to go over.
And then finally, we had the Fight Pit match, which I thought was a fucking banger. Timothy Thatcher versus Tommaso Ciampa. These guys beat the hell out of each other. It was a very cool finish, and I'm happy that Thatcher went over. What do you think, Jason?
I agree. I wish, just selfishly, it would have went maybe 5 or 10 minutes longer, because I just wanted to see these two beat the hell out of each other. And then if you wanted Thatcher to go over, that's great. I think the fact that he's won both Fight Pit matches kind of makes him stand out a little more. I was kind of worried about him going into 2021 in this scenario, because 2020 was kind of up and down for Thatcher. Kind of ended on a little bit of a down note, but the fact that he's won Fight Pit, the only 2 Fight Pit matches, and he made Ciampa tap out, which is borderline unheard of in this day and era, that's a good sign for Timothy Thatcher. Now, the fact that they're getting ready to look like they're going to put them together as a tag team and take the spots of Adonis, and I forgot his partner's name already, but I'm not a huge fan of that, but it kind of is what it is. Whoever the guy was that Karrion Kross squashed earlier, that's the tag team that's now apparently out of the Dusty Classic, and in an exclusive after NXT last night, it looks like Thatcher and Ciampa are set to replace that team. So I'm not a huge fan of that, but I did love the fucking Fight Pit. It was a banger match. Like I said, just selfishly, I just would have wished it went 5 minutes longer.
And it did look like there was a begrudging respect between the two
at the end. And I just wish it would let's just leave it at that, and let's not take it to the next step where now they're the tag team and they're going to start beating tag teams that they have no business beating, because it's a good idea to do it.
Right. Zach, can't wait to hear your thoughts on that next week. Okay, let's get to that 3 count.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, the 3 count is just main roster WWE, and it'll be real quick.
Don't shit on it too much now.
KO is now fighting Roman Reigns at Royal Rumble. I gotta admit, I was kind of looking forward to seeing Adam Pearce Roman Reigns, just because it was a little different. You know what I mean? No?
I said it last week.
We've already seen KO versus Roman Reigns a couple times now.
That's the only disappointment. They should have never did the second Roman Reigns KO match that was on SmackDown.
Or at least have a stip that relates to the story, because the whole story of the feud is that Jey Uso interferes in everything. And they even did a cage match, which is supposed to limit interference, but he still interfered. And so I put him in a shark cage or something, a last man standing match. What's going to stop Jey Uso and Roman Reigns together just from beating the hell out of him?
Is this a last man standing match?
That's what I heard.
No, I guess he did take Adam Pearce's spot. So yeah, it's a last man standing match. Okay, never mind. I answered my own question.
Oh, well, that's no fun. The other thing is, I don't know if SmackDown's serious about this, but they debuted 2 new talk shows this week. The Bloodline show with Jey Uso and Bayley's new show called Ding Dong Hello? What the fuck are they doing? What the fuck are they doing? Is that true?
I'll say that, well, the Bloodline, I think, is the name of the faction for Roman and Company. I don't think it's a talk show segment. Now, Ding Dong Hello obviously is. I think it's a perfect spot for Bayley to kind of continue this heel run that she's got going on. Obviously, she can talk. I don't necessarily have a problem with this, to be perfectly honest. It keeps her on TV, but not with the title, and that's two things right now. Go ahead.
I say I've been wanting to see Bayley in a show called Ding Dong Hello for a while.
Maybe Dong Ding Hello, right?
You ain't shit.
How many? Why does everybody have to have a show though? Like they've been trying to recreate Piper's Pit for so long, and they just can't do it. I mean, the Peep Show is pretty good.
Okay, that's what I was going to say.
I just like Christian though.
That's what I was going to say. It can be. Well, I won't go that far. Piper's Pit can never be at that. Will never be eclipsed or anything be at that level. But WWE is kind of, creatures of habit. This works, so we're going to stick to it. The talking segment is a huge part of the WWE programming playbook, okay? When Raw comes out, I'm stunned if somebody is not sitting there in ring with microphone ready to talk.
Yeah, I know, but they actually call it a talk show. That's what sucks about it. You know what? That's fine. I don't even want to argue about this. The last thing is, and then we'll get to the
This is the beefer.
The beefers. The last thing is the Alexa Bliss thing is only getting more supernatural. Randy Orton cut a promo at the beginning of Raw with a panty on his head.
Stop.
Like H.I. McDonough from Raising Arizona.
I love that movie. It's a great fucking movie.
Gilbert showed up. My favorite movie of all time.
Oh, okay.
Gilbert showed up, which I don't care about. AJ and Ricochet, though, got 12 minutes, and AJ and Ricochet looked pretty good. So I watched that, so you guys didn't have to.
No, I watched it. Well, I gutted it out, just like the champ that I am.
There you go.
Okay, I'm not a huge fan of this Alexa Bliss. That's the biggest problem with my Raw for Monday night is how Alexa Bliss and Asuka, the whole dynamic where Asuka left their talk show segment kind of scared, but then when the match started, she came down dancing like nothing happened, like that segment never happened. I mean, if something is fucked with you that much, and then you have to come across that same element again, you're not gonna come in all hunky dory, skipping down. You're gonna come in at least with some sort of trepidation. Okay, that didn't happen, and all of a sudden now Alexa Bliss has got the fucking fiend powers, and she's just.
Yeah,
it's too much. It's too much too quick. You should have built it up with women that you have no idea of what you're going to do with. Have them as the enhancement talent. At least build it to where we've seen it a couple of times. It looks believable, and then you could throw Asuka in. Just throwing Asuka in right now has set this bar so ridiculously high that anything else but her crushing everybody in her path is going to hurt Alexa Bliss.
Hey, Zach, have you ever met a woman that you didn't have any idea what to do with?
What do you mean?
I mean, Jason said it should be a woman that they have no idea what to do with.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Man.
That's a loaded question.
Jesus Christ. Cut this out of the podcast,
I was
man.
going to say, both you motherfuckers.
He's not even paying attention. That'll do it for our 3 counts.
You know what the fuck I'm talking about.
2, 3.
I was going to say something about, a woman I know, no, I don't have any, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
You know what?
There you go. That's what you get.
Let's just move on to this year's Beefers, baby.
This is banned from Ringside.
This is the beefer.
So, right now, these are the categories that we have, and maybe I'm forgetting one. Mark out moment of the year, best feud/angle, worst feud/angle, best pay-per-view, scandal of the year, turn of the year, overrated wrestler of the year, underrated wrestler of the year, best title change of the year, worst title change of the year, Tag Team of the Year, Tag Team Match of the Year, Women's Wrestler of the Year, Women's Match of the Year, Male Wrestler of the Year, Male Match of the Year, and Promo of the Year.
Only one I didn't have on that list is Turn of the Year, but I can easily figure something out.
All right, so I feel like we should have music playing, but we're not going to have music playing. This is going to take a while, so settle in here, guys.
They brought a couple beefers with
I
them.
want you guys to take your shirts off, light that joint, put some ice in that drink.
I want to hear...
Turn down the lights and just ride.
Damn, I was about to say, somebody getting ready to get laid in this motherfucker? I'm getting excited.
Oh, jeez, he's getting excited. Zach, we're going to go with you first, and we're going to start off with your mark-out moment of the year.
This one didn't require too much thought because, A, it was semi-recent, and B, it was definitely my most exciting, just turning totally into a kid again, like a 10-year-old Mark. Essentially the return of Sting whenever he showed up on AEW. Totally wild, totally unexpected. They did a great job of keeping it secret and just out of left field. I mean, we knew it was going to be a big show, but I did not expect that. So that really got me.
All right. His mark-out moment of the year was Sting's return on AEW Dynamite not that long ago. Jason, what do you have?
Same show, different moment. Looking at the current... Yeah, it was a really good show. And to me, the end of the show where Kenny Omega wins the title and proceeds to walk off with Don Callis, and Don Callis says that we'll see you on Tuesday night on Impact, had me like, oh, what the fuck is this? They're going to be on Impact on Tuesday. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And the next thing you know, the wheels are turning. Is this a work? Are we being played? What's going on? Is this a real deal? It usually takes me 2 or 3 minutes to start up NXT after I watch AEW, no matter what. I sat there and really thought about where this could go, what could happen, what's going to happen. It literally made me stop and mark the fuck out. Callis, Omega walking away, saying that we'll see you on Tuesday night, to me was the mark out moment of the year.
That's a very good call. I have that under my best angle of the year. So I didn't really consider it as a mark out moment, although I guess it was a mark out moment. My mark out moment is a total normie mark out moment that every fucking mark out there probably has. I have Edge showing up at the Royal Rumble and being in the Final Four.
That's no problem with that. I'll say the correct answer is all three are right. Now,
Yeah.
Edge is probably the safest bet because it literally caught me off guard. And they hit, like Two Beers said, they hit that secret well. And when the music popped, I'm like, oh, but hell no. And I had to literally wait to see it because WWE is always good for that bait and switch. And the next thing you know, he came out, I was like, man, that's crazy, you know.
And there was a moment where you thought he could win.
Yeah, I mean, they got it to the point where you were emotionally invested because now Edge is part of the Final Four. He outsmarts Randy, so, you know, it's like, oh, shit, this shit's getting ready to happen. But, I mean, ultimately they did the right thing, not having him win. But I can't say I disagree with that. It's probably the best of the three answers that we have on the board.
I think they're all three pretty good answers, except for the Sting one for me, just
Sting
because
ain't
I don't
shit.
like Sting. But I think that we could put it up on BFR Pod and have the people vote for which one's the best mark out.
Yeah, that's fine.
Actually, we could do that for all of these.
Yeah.
You know? We'll do them for all of them. So moving on.
This is the beefer.
So because I already said that my best feud / angle of the year was Kenny Omega leaving after winning the belt and going to Impact, let's just go with best feud / angle. And Jason, I'll ask you what yours is.
We're doing best, correct?
Best, yes.
Since you took to that, I did come up with 2 or 3 options. I'll go with a second option. I had very little expectations coming in for this feud, and then all of a sudden, Roman Reigns just flips this feud and makes him probably one of the better heels, arguably the best heel, closing out 2020. Put Jey Uso on the map, has made Jey Uso way more relevant than I thought he would be without Jimmy even being around, and Jimmy hasn't even come back to the table yet. Roman versus Jey did supersede all expectations. Both matches I thought were excellent. They told a story the whole way and basically has formed this new heel Roman Reigns that we've been crying for. We being us at BFR have been crying for the better part of 2 years.
Not only us, though. I mean, a lot of people.
I can safely say I can speak for us on this one. So, yeah, for me, Roman versus Jey I thought was the best feud / angle of the year.
Zach, what do you got?
The Impact angle is definitely the most impactful, like in wrestling, no pun intended there, but definitely fantastic. But I have to go with the Hangman Page saga, right, which is still ongoing. This Hangman Page character is one of the highlights of 2020 and his trials and tribulations and just wondering what he's going to do next, and really like just comes across as someone that we're invested in. And that's a really cool thing, because, you know, you can watch wrestling or like anything, or, you know, any kind of show, and it can be entertaining, but you don't really care about the characters or like what happens. But like, I'm truly invested in this Hangman Adam Page, and I'm really interested to see where he's going. We've seen where he's been, and it's been great. But yeah, I mean, this is like something that, like I said, long-term storytelling. It is still, like, we're into 2021 now, and it is still not decided. Like, Hangman Page's future is still up in the air. So, even though I think it is bright.
It is bright, and it is still ongoing, and now they've added a new layer to it with the Dark Order thing. So that is exciting. Now, on to, hold on a second.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
You silly.
That's never not going to make me laugh. I wish Zach could hear it. Zach, you should listen to the podcast when we're done so you can hear it. It is funny.
Oh, shit.
The worst angle of the year, and I tipped my hand a little bit a few weeks ago, but the worst angle of the year, first of all, it's pretty easy. You can narrow it down to Raw, because nothing's worse than Raw. Raw is by far the worst show, the worst weekly wrestling show that there is.
I can't say
right?
I disagree. It's missing Drew the last 2 weeks really.
Oh, it's been brutal.
It really kind of made it hard to watch, and how bad it's really gotten.
And then, so you got to think, what's the worst angle on Raw for the last year? And without a doubt, for me, it is Raw Underground. It is Shane. I mean, we can still put it up. We all have it.
No. I was about to say
we can still put it up with just one.
Options.
We can still put it up with just one thing.
No, you know me better than that. I can think of 3 or 4 things.
Raw Underground. They introduced. Well, it was supposed to be from 9 o'clock on, and when it happened, we had high hopes.
You did.
I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic fella. I was like, oh, maybe it'll just be for just barn burning matches, just 2 20-minute matches in an hour, with maybe some weigh-ins, maybe some after match interviews. Maybe they treat it like a real sport. This could be cool. And instead, they took the ropes off, had it be in the basement somewhere, introduced Babatunde,
who don't think we've seen in quite some time since.
Nope, they did. It went nowhere. It had no point. There was no matches. It was just guys fighting, which is not what I watch pro wrestling for. Mine is far and away Raw Underground. And I'll say this. Raw Underground might be the worst WWE angle that they've had since Katie Vick.
That's deep.
Find me one that's worse.
I
I know, there's millions of them. There's millions of them. That's true.
We only have
Heinrich
so
did rape Michael Cole in the bathroom one time.
I was going to say K did electrocute Shane's balls.
Oh, I'm okay with that.
What the fuck?
All right, what do you got, Jason?
It is Raw Underground. You can look at my sheet. It is one of four options I have on the list.
I don't have to look at the sheet.
It's. I'm going to stick with my pick, and this pick was one of my better rants for 2020 because it turned out to be one of the worst pay-per-views of the year. Money in the Bank to me was the worst angle that you could have come up with for just multiple reasons.
Great pick.
Corbin throwing off Aleister Black and Rey Mysterio. The fact that Asuka doesn't get touched and wins Money in the Bank. The fact that Otis stands there and has Money in the Bank fall into his lap. I mean, that's just on the top matches, the matches that were focused on the reason why we're here. The whole pay-per-view was Money in the Bank. And this is how you do it? And don't get me wrong, I get the sports entertainment part of it. I'm not going to sit up here and shit on the sports entertainment part of it. Those who like WWE will always come back to the fact that it is sports entertainment. You're supposed to, it's supposed to be entertaining first, wrestling second. I'm sorry, if you were entertained by this is where we can part ways, because this wasn't even remotely interesting at a certain point. This is part of the reason why Shayna Baszler isn't who Shayna Baszler is right now, because basically through that whole fucking match, she was comedic elements. She's not supposed to be funny. She's supposed to be an ass kicker and kick all ass all across the way. Anybody remember Elimination Chamber? I do. She whomped everybody's ass within 5 to 10 minutes, and that shit was over and done with. Then the next thing you know, you have this nonsense. Absolute hot garbage. Not once, but twice. The fact that you had Corbin throwing guys over the roof, which should have been enough. But now you double down on the fact that Otis won the Money in the Bank, and then you take it away from him subsequently thereafter. You broke up him and Tucker. Tucker ain't been seen since. He need to be on the side of a milk carton. Money in the Bank. Worst angle all year.
Zach, what do you got?
I actually also had Money in the Bank for those reasons, and also for the fact that they put it on somebody that they didn't even actually want to have win, and then they took it off of him and put him on another person that they obviously didn't want to have win. Like, they're not going to put Miz at the top of the card as the champion, and nobody wants to see that but Maurice, probably. Like the only two people in the entire world. And then whenever he fails his cash in, they give it back to him again. Like, I mean, it's been a total travesty, absolute travesty.
They've overthought. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and I said, and pretty much honorable mention to anything involving the Fiend except for WrestleMania, because that was entertaining. But the rest of the year has been shit.
They have overthought the Money in the Bank at least 2 straight years with the Brock Lesnar thing and the Otis thing. Both were debacles. Both have shown up in the last 2 years' worst angle of the year, which shows you something, because that should be one of the best parts of the year is the Money in the Bank and who has it. You got to put it on somebody. Got to put it on somebody that you want to see win. I mean,
no, it's got to be somebody that's in the mid card that needs that bump. Like Ricochet is a great example, because by his own accord right now, he's not going to be getting a world title shot. So he would need something like this to get him where he wants to go. Now, from there, you can book it any way you want to.
Or like Aleister Black, which is a guy that...
Dude, MIA.
There's a guy that a few of us picked for Money in the Bank this year. Okay, moving on.
Eye for an Eye is my honorable mention for worst angle of the year.
Oh, that was really bad.
KOPW as well.
Oh, I forgot about Eye for an Eye. Oh, that's got to be in there, man. We got to put that at least on the vote.
Well, then take mine away. put mine eye for an eye as my pick for worst angle of the year. So that way we have 3 different choices.
All right. Okay. That's fair. Okay. So let's move on to tag team of the year. Interested to hear who you guys had to say. I've already written mine down. Zach, we'll let you go first.
For me, it is the Young Bucks, and it is purely because they just go out there and make people look awesome every week that they're in the ring. And I know they didn't have the titles for the majority of it. It was Omega and Page, which is kind of a honorable mention for sure. But, I mean, I feel like Tag Team of the Year is going to be Young Bucks until they retire, and then they'll be Tag Team of all time.
I'll go next.
Please.
I didn't pick the Bucks, but my initial pick was the honorable mention tag team that Two Beer just mentioned, but I'm not going to pick that. I'm going to take the North from Impact, and this is the reason why. When you beat Santana and Ortiz, who were the longest reigning Impact champions at the time, that's a rub. Okay, and then the North proceeds to take that and break the record of Santana and Ortiz. They won it back recently, and obviously Ethan Page is off to greener pastures, wherever those greener pastures are. That's his call, but I do like the Bucks. Bucks are a great team, but I would be...
Oh, you like the Bucks?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah,
you
a little
like the
bit.
Bucks?
A little bit.
Actually, I saw Ethan Page die Saturday. So
Yeah, good. Yeah.
It looked pretty rough.
Karate Man ripped his heart out.
I was getting ready to say that's some Mortal Kombat shit. Yeah, I liked Page and Omega, but I think the North is probably the better call for me. I'm going to take the North as tag team of the year.
Okay, so that's not what I expected you to do. So I thought that I was throwing the curveball. But if you're not going to say who I thought you were going to say, then I'm going to say who I thought you were going to say, and I'll go with the Lucha Brothers for a lot of the same reason that Zach took the Bucks, is because without a doubt, I'd rather watch them wrestle more than any other tag team that's out there, is Penta and Phoenix. And whether or not they had the belt, which they didn't at any time this year, they both had title matches this year, but those are the two guys that I want to watch the most because they are the most entertaining for my money. I was going to say, because I thought one of you was going to say Lucha and one of you was going to say Young Bucks. I didn't see the North coming. I was going to say FTR because FTR made such a splash when they left WWE and showed up at AEW. And really the story of the year, besides the pandemic this year, is AEW's emergence as basically WWE's equal, if not financially.
It's cheap competition. I can go that far.
If not financially, because we know that it's not financially, but in terms for the amount of eyes that watch it and the amount of, in our circle, and when I say our circle, I mean the internet wrestling community, the
right.
fucking nerds that we talk to online and all that stuff. And I say that with love.
Yeah, with all due respect.
I say it with affection. No, I really do. I mean, come on, we're here. We're talking about wrestling. For us, for the adults that are still watching it, and that's like what fucking Tender Mahal said on here a couple weeks ago. It's like WWE Raw is just for children now, and Lucha Brothers, FTR, Young Bucks, the North. It's interesting to me, and Adam Page and Kenny Omega didn't even get named on here, and they were the belt holders, and you have LAX, and you have all these other guys in AEW, which has a fantastic tag team division. So
the Dangerous Techers.
Dude, I have them on the list. I have them on my list.
I thought about the Dangerous Techers also, but the New Japan's tag team
is just brutal. Yeah,
it's just not any good.
It's hard. I shouldn't say it's hard. It's easy for them to stand out in that division. For me, like I said, the North is just one of those where I just feel like their accomplishments throughout 2020 deserve to be at least on this list. Paige and Omega are probably a more sexy, flashier pick, but I do watch Impact weekly. The North has basically ran amok up until the last couple months of 2020. So I would take that versus a nice 6-month title reign with Paige and Omega. That's
all
just
right.
me.
Moving on.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
All right, so it's tag team matches. I know, it's so good.
It's his voice, dude.
We
It's
have to
his
stop
fucking
laughing
voice.
at it, though. We have to start no-selling it. The tag team match of the year. Jason, I'll let you go first.
Caught me sleeping. Shit, you got one or two choices as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to take the one, and I'm going to go a little recency bias on this one. I'm going to go Bucks versus FTR. There's really two choices that are on this list. At least for me, I wrote both of them down, and both have the Young Bucks as the common denominator, if you will. For me, the FTR match stands out a little more because of the callbacks to great tag teams of the past. And I know we had a debate about whether that was good or not, whether it made the match longer or not. For me, it struck the right chords because you have to kind of acknowledge the past to create the present and the future. Those teams that they kind of call back to are some of the greatest tag teams of all time. And you can argue that if you want to. The Bucks are obviously in this match. People are going to say they're the GOAT, at least they're the modern day GOAT, and that's fine too. But for me, like I said, there's two real quote unquote right answers. Bucks versus FTRs for me is one of those right answers.
Zach, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll take the other one, which is Bucks versus Omega and Page. And like Jason said, the common denominator is the Bucks, and that's why they got my tag team of the year vote, because they had the two best tag team matches that I saw this year, and maybe the two best tag team matches I've ever seen in my life. It's ridiculous, the quality of the storytelling in these matches, not just like the pure athleticism, which they're known for, but just going out there, putting on a show, telling a story, subtle details, infinite replayability as far as, watching these things back. They're going to be just so entertaining. I mean, both of them I watched like 2 or 3 times in the week that they were first aired. Just going back, and they were both long matches too. But just brilliant stuff.
So, you just said 2 of the best tag team matches you've ever seen of all time. I would love to have a long conversation or a podcast sometime where we watch those 2 matches, and then we watch the War Raiders versus Mustache Mountain and War Raiders versus Undisputed Era, and try to decide which matches are better, because they're all incredible.
Agreed. But those matches weren't in the realm of 2020.
No, I'm just saying I'd like to, it'd be a fun conversation to have.
Yeah.
My vote was for the Young Bucks versus Omega Page. I think I was in the minority where the Young Bucks FTR, with all the callbacks to the old tag teams, wasn't really my bag. It was a little too gimmicky for me. But just for the fun of it, to create a third option for the people to vote on, and this might be cheating a little bit.
Okay, this should be good.
But it might be. I don't know where else you could put this in any of the other categories. I'll say Stadium Stampede.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I fucking loved it, man.
Dude, come on, man.
So
That's
good.
okay. See, that should. Well, I guess between the 3 of us, I'm the only one that didn't like that.
No, I
loved it.
Zach fucking loved it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm the only one that didn't like it.
So, in the interest of putting another one out there for the vote.
That's fair. That's fair.
But
That's fair.
When I think about 2020 matches, I'm gonna.
That wasn't even a. Go ahead.
Yes, it wasn't a match. It was at the beginning of the pandemic when they really had no
idea what's going on.
No idea what to do, and they were trying to be creative.
No, you're right. You're right.
And
It didn't register for me. That's all.
Oh, I thought it was fun as hell. I remember Adam Page running like 80 yards for that clothesline, and I was laughing the whole time he was running. I was like, he's going to clothesline this motherfucker.
Poor Sammy Guevara could have been injured multiple times in that nonsense.
Okay, so those will be our three: Stadium Stampede, Young Bucks, FTR, Young Bucks, or Mega Page. For my money, though, Young Bucks and Mega Page was my favorite tag team match.
No, like I said, I wrote them both down. It was hard for me to really pick until you forced me to pick.
All right.
This is the beefer.
Title change of the year. Let's go with best title change of the year. I'll go first, and this might be a little boring. I am going with Kenny Omega winning and taking it to TNT. I know that's boring, and I know that it's already won one of my beefers this year, but I mean, you really can't. It's hard to overstate how big of a deal that is if you're talking about AEW / Impact versus WWE. And it's, I mean, they may look back on it and it may not be that big of a deal, or they may look back on it and it may be the turning point in the next decade of wrestling. So my title change of the year is Kenny Omega winning and going to Impact Wrestling, taking it off of Jon Moxley, I should say. Two Beer Zach.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. Mine is Brody Lee coming out and absolutely destroying Cody Rhodes in essentially a squash match and coming across as a complete monster. And they stretchered Cody out of there, and he still continued to beat the shit out of him, and just had Brody Lee just come off so well.
Completely
and nobody
forgot about that.
Everybody expected a competitive match. You know, Cody had been on one of the better title runs really one of the better title runs kind of the modern era, in my opinion, with that open challenge every week, bringing in different talent, working with talent from out of the promotion. It was an exciting thing every week to see what was going to happen. And he was doing these long matches, long for TV. They had TV time limits and stuff, and there was a couple of draws in there. But, yeah, whenever Brody Lee just came out and just mauled him, it was cool.
Completely forgot about that. That's a great call. Jason, what do you got?
I will actually do what you did. I will piggyback on Two Beers' call on Brody Lee versus Cody. It's the only match that I had on the list. It stood out just because the story that was being told was Cody was on this magnificent run, and here comes Brody Lee, and the fact that he won wasn't even the issue. It's how he won. It was just so, startling to see him just demolish the face of AEW, for lack of a better term. It blew me away, and it was such a good moment. It's one of the many what-if moments of 2020. What if Brody Lee stays alive? What could have been his, storyline path the rest of the year? So I will say that was probably, for me, the best title change, and that's what I wrote down. But for the sake of three different answers, I'll go with an honorable mention that I just thought about. I'll go Drew taking the title away from Brock Lesnar. I didn't think that Drew had much of a chance coming in. Even the day of the match, I was still kind of worried about it. The match itself wasn't good, but it set Drew apart and put him on this pedestal where now he was the top guy. So now you started to have a run of really good matches with him. Obviously, the Orton feud was probably arguably the best of the bunch. Probably went one match too long, neither here nor there. It basically sets up Drew for the rest of 2020 to kind of dominate the Raw side of the board, and it had to start somewhere. So I'll take Drew over Brock as best title change of the year.
That's a good call, too. All right, so we got Kenny Omega, Drew over Brock, and Brody over Cody.
This is the
I'm
beef.
surprised Jason didn't pick that Naito double gold dash.
No. Just
I have a feeling there's some Naito coming up.
You just can't just do Naito all the time.
You can do whatever you want.
No.
This is the Beefers. Okay, so what's your worst title change of the year, Jason?
Evil taking the title off of Naito. It's not even close. I mean, give me a fucking break. Honorable mention, Braun taking the title off of Goldberg and Charlotte taking the title off of Rhea were my two honorable mentions. But this is a homer pick. Clearly it didn't work. It got shock value out of it, and that's really about it. Evil has done nothing but regress backwards since. I get it. I get the why, but it was clearly not thought out very well. For me, Evil taking the title off of Naito, worst title change of the year.
So that was also mine. You took the only other one that I thought of, which was Charlotte Flair going over Rhea Ripley. Although it's never been said, I think there were other factors that played into that.
No, there were.
I'll go Flair versus Rhea, even though it's evil. But Strowman going over Goldberg was not a bad title change. That was a good title change. Anytime you take the belt off of Goldberg, it's a good title change.
How we got there.
If Sting took the belt off of Goldberg, it'd be a good title change.
Wow. Shit.
That one was for you, Zach. Okay, Zach, what's your worst title change of the year?
Mine was also Evil becoming double champion, but the only other one that I had written down was Goldberg beating The Fiend.
Oh, fuck. That was in Saudi Arabia, wasn't it? That'll be the... Wasn't that in Saudi Arabia?
I don't remember.
Yes.
It could have been.
Yeah.
I just remember it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he disappeared. And then The Fiend disappeared.
Yeah, that was in Saudi. I was going to say.
So that'll be the three that we put up. Will be Flair, Rhea, Evil, and The Fiend losing to Goldberg. That's a great call. I forgot it.
Dude, this is why I love this episode. I love the beefers because
brought a couple beefers
we
with
always think about, oh, this is it. This is the right answer. And then one of the three of us, which is great because we don't share our answers beforehand.
No, we don't.
Okay, so things that are coming back, like literally Two Beers answer, I totally forgot about the fact that Goldberg won to set up the fact that Goldberg
had to lose.
Had to lose to Braun. The only thing I remember is how bad that match was, how short that match was, and how much this was bullshit. That's what I remember. I don't even remember Goldberg beating The Fiend, but now that Two Beers said it, I'm like, oh yeah, that shit did happen.
All right, moving on.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
We got the turn of the year. Zach, go first.
I think there is pretty much one main answer here, and that is Roman Reigns. Like we've said before, kind of echoing those sentiments. We've been waiting for it to happen, and not only did it happen, but it is going swimmingly, and it makes SmackDown watchable.
Yes.
It makes it a worthwhile program, despite all of the interference it does. I think the interference bothers me because there's interference in like every single match in WWE. It's almost like Bullet Club, like everybody in WWE's in the Bullet Club, and they're just running in constantly. But yeah, I think that is the main one. And even though my main man, Johnny Gargano, also killing it as a heel, and he turned this year by turning on Tommaso Ciampa, and the Gargano way has been a highlight of NXT, him and Candice. But I feel like Roman Reigns has been that much more impactful, and I mean it's a bigger show, it's on network television, and he's just kicking ass.
Jason.
Great choice. Obviously my choice. So I shouldn't say obviously, but that was my pick. I was thinking about a backup, and I think I probably got one. Will Ospreay turning on Okada is
God damn it, you mother!
It's the one. I'm sorry, that mother.
This is the beefer.
It was so weird to see Will Ospreay turning on Okada that it took like a few minutes for it to settle in. Like this shit is happening. I can't believe this shit is happening. And the fact that they done it and they kind of ran with it a little bit, despite the fact that they had a little dip at Wrestle Kingdom, and that's not the biggest deal in the world. You know, the United Empire will be fine at the end of the day. But to me, doing it, if you're going to have a turn like that, it's got to be on somebody that's impactful. You just can't have Retribution run around and stomping people, stomping stagehands, and make that feel like it's worth something. If you're going to do it, you might as well lean into it like this man to my right says all the time. Okada getting jumped by Will Ospreay, to me, was the turn of the year.
So all three of mine were named. The Will Ospreay one is good, but it almost, compared to the other two, it almost doesn't seem like a full heel turn, just because that's not the way the New Japan really does things. I mean, there are shades of gray in New Japan that don't exist in WWE or American wrestling, for that matter. Roman Reigns is my answer, because Roman Reigns, like, I couldn't have said it better than Zach did. In fact, I would have used the word swimmingly also. It's been completely badass. Gargano is also great. Those will be all three, though. It'll be Ospreay, Gargano, and Roman Reigns. My vote would be for Roman Reigns.
Oh,
because
yeah.
He is,
without question,
he is so good in his role right now that it almost, it pisses you off that they didn't do it earlier.
Yeah.
So we got a few more before we get to the big ones. The most overrated wrestler of the year. I'll go first.
I'm not going to say the same one I said last year.
You're not going to say the same one that I say either. It's Darby Allin, guys. I don't get it. I just don't fucking get it. I just, like, he can wrestle. He's fine. But should he have gold? No. Should he be using a skateboard with no trucks in the ring? No. It's stupid. I'm going Darby Allin. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. Not
I will.
when I say sorry, I mean I'm sorry to Zach.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I will push back just because if you look at the ratings from last week, they doubled Darby Allin versus Brian Cage, doubled viewers from NXT, which had Undisputed Era in the main event. Undisputed Era dropped below 500,000, and there was 800-something thousand people watching. So Darby Allin's a draw, and obviously not for Bill. But
well, that's what overrated means. He's overrated. If he's a draw, that means he's overrated.
I think it means he's going over in the ratings. But anyway,
Go ahead, Zach.
You want mine?
I want your overrated. Yeah.
Evil. He was overpushed and underdelivered, and I feel like I liked Evil before this. I liked him when he was in LIJ. I liked Evil and Sonata as a tag team. I liked seeing him in the G1 before we had all the bullshit interference in every single match. And Evil bums me out when he's on TV, especially whenever he wrestled Naito all summer. And Naito, in one of his promos, to set up one of these matches, he's like, yeah, what is this, the 5th time we've wrestled this year? He's like, I wouldn't watch the show either.
Yeah, that's good. Who do you got for most overrated, Jason?
We just mentioned his name a few minutes ago. I'm not going to say that the loss to Goldberg is the reason.
Stallion? He's a friend of the show.
Shit, I was about to say, the next category should be where Kurt Stallion is. I'm going to go on the assumption it's underrated. For me, it's The Fiend, man. I just don't get it. I haven't gotten it really since the beginning. I was cool with Bray Wyatt. If you just booked him right, you wouldn't have to bring back The Fiend. But, the Swamp match, womp, womp, womp. The best thing that's happened with The Fiend was the Firefly Funhouse. Outside of that, he's lost the title. He's had a crappy fucking feud with Braun Strowman. He's lost to Goldberg. No disrespect, but I guess a little bit of everybody loses to Goldberg. But that doesn't help the fact that you're still fucking overrated. He should have been crushing Goldberg. This new Alexa Bliss thing, I don't get that either. Everybody's finding out where the Funhouse is when originally nobody knew when it was. I'm sorry. If you just booked Bray Wyatt right, you wouldn't have to make up The Fiend. And now you're starting to fuck that up too. The Fiend, most overrated of 2020.
That's a good little threesome right there. A good vote. Darby Allin versus The Fiend versus Evil. I guarantee you that Darby Allin gets the least amount of votes.
You don't know that, dude.
Because nobody agrees with me.
You don't know that.
Yeah, I think I do. But moving on.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
We got the most underrated wrestler of the year. Jason, you go ahead.
When I think most underrated, I think it's a person that isn't on my radar, and then for whatever reason now you have gotten on my radar and I start looking for you for this point on. John Silver to me is the most underrated of 2020. I don't even watch BTE, and I keep hearing his name come up. I see it online, so I always like, okay, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And I finally saw one of his matches, and then I'm like, okay, so this is this guy. Short in stature, but he has more charisma than guys that are 6'10". Okay?
It almost sounded like you were describing yourself.
I wish I was. Jumps off the screen, great in ring, and the fact that his charisma wants me, it kind of makes me want to watch BTE, even though I don't. Okay? I'm just a huge fan of Silver. I like the fact that last night, that whole segment with Dark Order and Adam Page was basically with John Silver as the centerpiece. He did a lot of the talking front and back, and had a decent match going into it. I'm going to pick John Silver as most underrated of 2020.
All right, Zach, who you got?
Yeah, so kind of similar vein. It is tough because there are a lot of people that are like underpushed, right? There's guys that we talk about for years that are underutilized. Most of them are in WWE. They're everywhere though.
That is what makes this category tough, because it's like, what are your criteria for it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so for this one, I kind of thought similarly to Jason, kind of like somebody that I might have known that was on my radar, but really kind of stood out to me. Almost kind of like a most improved situation, because we don't really have that category. But I look at like these young lions and stuff, but I almost disqualify them because there's so many of them that are so good, and like their time is coming. They're not underrated because like they're still in that dojo scenario, like Yu Uemura, Yota Tsuji, Clark Connors. These guys murder. They're so good, and they're going to be huge stars, but it's just like they're still learning, like they're still in school, right? So I didn't go with any of those. So I kind of looked, and mine is Tainara Conti, because she has super impressed me since she's been in AEW. She was in NXT for years, and I watched her, and all I really knew about her was like she was Brazilian with a great ass, and she was green in the ring, right? That's it. Then she gets to AEW. I find out she's a goddamn shooter. She's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a blue belt, and some other shit where she can kick your ass. And she's got charisma, and she's hugely improved. And I think and also looking at it, I think the AEW women's division gets a lot of shit from the internet wrestling community whenever they're relying mostly on talent that, are younger and greener, whenever the initial AEW women's division had a lot of stardom, like Yuka Sakazaki, who's like awesome, and B. Priestley and stuff, and these people are not in the country. So anyway, I kind of looked at a division that gets a lot of flack, that is an underrated division as a whole, and I think Tay Conti is kind of a shining beacon, and she's going to do great things like in this next year.
That's a great pick. Like I said, it's a tough category because who's underrating them? Is it Vince? Is it mainstream audiences? Is it the internet wrestling community? I just went with a guy that has been saddled with a terrible gimmick that could do some real things for the WWE, and I'm not talking about Cesaro. I think Cesaro could be on this every single year.
True.
But I went with Chad Gable because I think Chad Gable has the ability and the talent to really do some motherfucking shit. And he kind of tasted the top. I mean, he had the belts. He fought at WrestleMania. Him and Jason Jordan under American Alpha were great. I think Chad Gable has Kurt Angle potential. I don't know if he's got the charisma, but I know that he's not lacking charisma, though, either.
No. I think Kurt Angle's a nice leap, but I mean, I see where you're going with it.
It's funny because this Chad Gable is the first guy that I think of every year with this. It's almost like we should just call it the Chad Gable Award or the Cesaro Award.
Yeah, either I'm good with either one because both of them should be like running shit. They really should be, and
Cesaro more so than Chad Gable, but yeah, I mean, it's
Chad Gable could do a lot of shit though that they're not doing with him.
I'm not disagreeing with you, brother.
So we got Gable, we got Silver, we got Tay Conti, we got hold on.
This is the beefer.
The scandal of the year.
I'll say y'all better start thinking because we should all be thinking the same thing on this one.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think there's only one.
Tell us what it is.
To me, there is only one.
Tell us what it is.
Speaking out. I mean, come on. It basically took down, so many people and so many different promotions, guys you didn't think about for a while. I was listening to last year's Beefers. We were, spouting how great David Starr's promo was. A year later, this dude's off the map. I hadn't even thought about this motherfucker since. Joey Ryan. He's trying to, throw lawsuits left and right to the people that are, throwing him underneath the bus, calling him out, and all these lawsuits have been going on. There is only one answer. And for the fact that we might have to come up with two more, I'm sorry that I went first, but this is the only correct answer, period.
I'm going to jump out ahead of this because you know what? I'm not going to. I'm going to let Zach go first, but I think that Zach and I are going to say the exact same thing. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, speaking out was A1 for me, but I also wrote down just all the shady COVID shit that went down in all the companies, right? Like just kind of a total profit over people, whether it's firing, laying off during a pandemic, even though you right beforehand, you were hiring everybody in the entire world. And also, like, you recorded record profits in that quarter. You fire one of your senior officials, like, right before he retires. It's just like, that's just like, you're running shows, you're doing COVID, outbreaks, just such a lack of protocols, lack of care, lack of safety. So that one was for me. Is that what you were thinking, or did you have another one?
No, I thought that you were going to say WWE's, their response to speaking out, which was lackluster. I mean,
that's being nice.
Yeah, if you think about Dream, who was talking to minors, not saying that that's any better. Obviously, I'm not making any value judgments about what's better or what's worse here, but you think about Velveteen Dream talking to minors, you think about Austin Theory and that shit, you think about Matt Riddle and that shit, and they really didn't, they really haven't gotten rid of anybody due to the Me Too movement since Enzo. They just kind of moved a couple people
around,
back.
yeah.
Well, they got rid of Rich Swann, and then it turned out, well,
allegedly he didn't do it. I don't know.
I thought that speaking out was going to be there. The thing that I thought of, and there's really not a place for this either, other than scandal, even though it's not really a scandal, is the Guevara-Matt Hardy match when Matt Hardy clearly got concussed.
Yeah.
And then they finished the match, which they never should have done.
No.
They should have ended that match right then and right there.
Yeah.
And really, I don't even know if he should be wrestling anymore because that concussion was so violent and so it was hard to watch, really.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've watched a lot of wrestling. I've seen a lot of shit.
It was like when Mahomes got concussed and he tried to get up and you could see him kind of getting up. He was like, oh, you know, same thing with Matt. You could see him trying to continue the match. You know, his brain was trying to do one thing. His legs was doing something entirely different. And that's what the sad part about it is. I don't mean to laugh, but that's the bad part about that whole match. And like you said, they should have just stopped it right away and just been done with it.
All right. So we'll throw that in there. We got the Matt Hardy concussion, speaking out, and COVID protocols.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
All right. So here comes a big one. We got promo of the year. I'll go
Roman Reigns Award.
The Roman Reigns
I did
Award.
write that down.
The Roman Reigns Award.
Yeah, say that 5 times fast.
I will go first. This is a promo that it was two guys, and I got worked by it. I got completely worked. Tender Mahal was sitting right here in my basement with me. I watched it twice. Both of us got completely worked by it. It was one of the best promos I've ever seen between two guys that made me want to watch a match so bad that I had no desire in watching a match before. Not even two guys that I particularly like watching work. It was Eddie Kingston and John Moxley. I guess you call it the kitchen table promo, where he was talking about how you sat at my kitchen table and you talked to my mom. That promo was...
This is the reason why you don't have grandkids.
That was an unbelievably moving and emotional promo that just gets you fired the fuck up. I loved it. Promo of the year is a hard one because there's always 5 or 6 that happen and you forget it. That's my promo of the year. Jason, what you got?
That was my number one. As soon as I wrote it down, I was like, what was a good oh, yeah. Because the part about the grandkids, that was the one part that struck me more than anything else because it brought in that personal element that has absolutely nothing to do with this match, but it affected him being Eddie Kingston so that it's personally this, burden that I'm always carrying around. You want grandkids? Well, sorry, Mom, here's the title belt instead. So for me, that was number one. A quiet number two, and it's been a while since we talked about this number two. My second pick, my honorable mention, but the MJF promo when he basically called himself out and wanted to be the number one contender. I thought that was some of his best work, and that says,
this is why we don't.
The people deserve better.
Yeah.
It was basically in the year of obviously voting for a new president, so they kind of took that. I know people are like, well, EC3 did this first. Well, goddamn it, if we had to take away all the repeat angles in wrestling, you wouldn't have that many angles anymore. So in this scenario, I don't necessarily worry about who took it from where. I'm worried about the content and what it made me feel after the fact. That match was a really good match. The part of the reason why I thought we had that good match was that promo by MJF right there that basically called himself out, made himself the number one contender. These are the reasons why. And Moxley, we were behind you before. You led this revolution, but now you're kind of old news. It's time for somebody else to come in. It was part of the 2020 election year. It kind of makes sense. I'm going to take MJF as promo of the year.
Two beer.
This is hilarious because the first thing I wrote down was Eddie Kingston and John Moxley, and then in parentheses I wrote, and every other John Moxley promo.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The second thing I wrote was MJF's State of the Industry address. That's what he called it, the State of the Industry address. And it was, I just rewatched it today. It was like 7 minutes of him barely looking at notes, and it was incredibly clever. And he did the whole dig at Hulk Hogan. He dig at Moxley. That's a stone cold fact, brother. Basically saying he's cosplaying. So good. And he was just on an absolute tear.
Oh, yeah. I want to watch it again.
So, yeah,
now.
those were my top two, but then I did have a third that I also watched today. I was trying to think of stuff and, get some, the promos are memorable, but sometimes they're often less memorable than the matches because they're shorter usually. But the Cody Rhodes TNT Open Challenge, I mentioned it earlier, how whenever he set up the Open Challenge, it was the May 27th edition of Dynamite, and it was just classic Cody Rhodes, right? I'll outwork you. Doesn't matter how talented you are. Doesn't matter how big you are. I'm going to do the work and I'm going to outwork you. And, just classic Cody Rhodes stuff. Slightly less emotional than some of his earlier stuff had been, right? We've seen him get so emotional that his voice cracks, right? He's nearly in tears. And those are the best Cody Rhodes promos.
He's an emotional guy.
Absolutely. doesn't shy away from
Just
it.
like his dad.
Yeah, for sure. And he even said, like, in that promo, he's like, I didn't get the Dusty genes. He's like, Dustin got all the good genes. And then you see, like, Dustin in the crowd, and he's standing there. He's like in his 50s, and he's just ripped, just jacked. And you're like, oh yeah. But it was cool because he started it, and he said, you know why Tom Brady's my favorite quarterback? And he's like, well, Tom Brady wasn't the first drafted. And he's like, and when it came for Tony Khan to put together a bell-to-bell wrestling promotion, I wasn't the first call. I wasn't the second call. I wasn't the third call. And then he holds up 4 fingers, like, like a 4 horseman. And he was like the 4th call. I was like, that's pretty cool. So,
yeah.
Anyway, it was really good.
All right, so we got Kingston Moxley, MJF State of the Industry, and Cody Open Challenge.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
All right, so, Jason, I'm going to let you go first.
Okey-dokey, Smokey.
I'm going to run upstairs real fast, so talk loud enough so I can hear you in the bathroom. Best pay-per-view of the year.
Man, honestly, for me, there's like really 3 answers that I can think of off the top of my head. I wrote down, and the one I wrote down first is what I'm going to just stick with. To me, it was Wrestle Kingdom. I'm sorry. Call me what you want to. I am a homer at this point. Everybody knows I'm a homer, but what you are going to tell me, we're going to create history, and this history contains easily my favorite wrestler active today, and we're going to have him not only beat Jay White, who's been a kind of thorn in Naito's side for quite some time, but then now on top of it, with Okada standing in the way of history, it's going to be hard for me not to say that was going to be the pay-per-view of the year. Call me what you want on this one. It is a homer pick, and I will stand by said homer pick. Wrestle Kingdom 14, pay-per-view of the year.
That's absolutely the first one that I wrote down. You had that historic moment, but you also had like so many great matches, like Hiromu versus Will Ospreay. I can still remember like the spots like in these matches because they're like so memorable. We had the Naito Jay White was great. Okada versus Ibushi was over the top great. And then, we had John Moxley on both pay-per-views before the pandemic, so we got to see him defeat
Lance
Archer, and then the very next night defeat Juice Robinson. And Jericho versus the Ace. I mean, besides, like you said, the penultimate Naito versus Okada, like that was just the pinnacle of excellence of pay-per-views for me last year. I will go just to have a second answer with NXT TakeOver Portland. That was, again, pre-pandemic, so we actually have crowds. I think probably all the best pay-per-views this year would be ones that have crowds in them. Like anything that I would think would be before April. But running down that card, for those of you guys who don't remember, we had Keith Lee defeat Dominik Dijakovic, and their matches are always great. That was for the NXT North American Championship, so Keith Lee retained. Dakota Kai defeated Tegan Knox. Man, Tegan Knox, R.I.P. I feel bad for her.
She ain't
huge
dead.
Talent. We had Finn Balor defeating Johnny Gargano. 27-minute match. Awesome. Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair. So before, they ruined Rhea Ripley and before Bianca Belair was gone. And we had the Broserweights, which was a fun little tag team. Matt Riddle, Pete Dunne, in an awesome match with Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, where they won the tag team titles. And then Adam Cole defeated Tommaso Ciampa. And then that's where we have the heel turn of Johnny Gargano. So excellent show.
Okay, so you went with
Wrestle Kingdom 14.
night 2. Or you're just putting it all as one?
To me, it's one fell swoop. It's 2 shows, 1 card.
And Zach went with?
NXT.
I Wrestle Kingdom 14, but NXT TakeOver Portland is the other one, so we have an extra.
All right, I'm going to throw in a fun one here just because I remember after this happened, all three of us were like, God damn, that might as well have been a pay-per-view. So it's G1 Night 17, which was had Shingo versus Suzuki, had Jeff Cobb versus Takahashi in a fun match. Both those were great matches. Then we had Ospreay versus Okada, which was a fire match. Then we had one of the most memorable matches I've ever seen, which is Tai Chi versus Ibushi in the match that was all kicks. All kicks except for the very end. And then the main event, which Jay White needed to win the G1, and he lost to Ishii.
Fuck.
So I'm going to go, Wrestle Kingdom 14, Night 2 especially, probably would have been my first vote. But I had a feeling that was going to come up, so I'm going to...
You think?
I'm going to go with G1 Night 17.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a pay-per-view, but it was a show, so I'll go with G1 Night 17.
We'll work with that.
It's funny because whenever I was thinking about these, I thought of that night, but the reason I didn't write it down, I was like, I don't want to go through and look at all of those to see which one it was. But it was like, when we saw it, it was like, this is like the best show of the year. It was just crazy. Like the whole thing was just loaded.
Yeah, I was going to say, in that scenario, you have, I won't call it a comedy match, but Yujiro versus Cobb, you don't necessarily take as seriously when you have Okada and Ospreay on the same night. You know what I'm saying? That's the one you kind of look out for and you actually want to see. Tai Chi and Kota Ibushi just snuck up on you, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, have they done anything but kick each other? And next thing you know, you got a fucking instant classic on your hands. So I mean, yeah, I have no problem with that pick right there. Zero.
Well, that was also kind of they were building off of that tag team match that was the Dangerous Techers versus the Golden Aces, which was they had a go at each other in the middle where they were just kicking each other. So they were kind of building off that, which is what New Japan's so good at. Okay, women's match of the year. Or you know what? Let's go with women's wrestler of the year. I'll let Zach go first.
I only wrote one name, and it was Bayley. She pretty much carried her and Sasha Banks. So I mean, you could throw her in there too. But Bayley, I feel like with the heel turn late in 2019, and never would have thought that Bayley as a heel would be better than Bayley as a face. But she was pretty much carrying that SmackDown show on her back for months. The Bayley dose straps, her and the Sasha thing, even though it had a kind of a disappointing payoff. Not a disappointing payoff because Sasha won the title, but a disappointing payoff because they just kind of spent years building it up and then they wrapped it up in 3 weeks and they aren't even like milking it for what it's worth. So, for me is 100% Bayley.
Yeah, I mean, Bayley had such a long title reign. I mean, the matches were okay, I guess. It really wasn't a strong year for women's wrestling. I got to be honest. I picked Io Shirai. Jason, who you got?
Yeah, dominant year for her.
Rhea Ripley was poised to do this.
Yeah,
when COVID hit.
Yeah, it's
Vince hit.
Yeah, on top of it, but neither here nor there. Both of those names I do have on my list. I did have Bayley as my number one pick. I agree with everything that Two Beers said. Bayley dose straps up until Roman Reigns flipping heel was basically carrying SmackDown. Sasha turning heel just kind of enhanced Bayley's heel turn. Bayley was my number one pick. The person I had second is probably the one that I was kind of leaning towards when I was coming in, so I kind of thank Two Beer for taking and picking Bayley, so that way I can get this person's name on the list. I can't call her underrated anymore because she's basically on the scene in Impact, and it's another great example of what good booking can do if you just do it right. Deonna Purrazzo was basically out and about on NXT doing next to nothing, and she was conveniently shipped off picked up by Impact, and Impact has turned her around and made her into arguably one of the better wrestlers. Well, she was already a great wrestler and ring technician, but now they have gotten her to the point where she's gone through the Impact roster or the Knockouts roster and made a name for herself. And good booking sometimes does that when you can't really figure out what the fuck to do. Maybe you should book this person strong, give her a fucking storyline angle or two, and work that shit out. For me, Deonna Purrazzo is a very, very safe choice. Bayley is probably the correct choice, if there is a correct choice, but to me, a solid 1A or number 2, whatever you want to call it, is Deonna Purrazzo.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
All right, so the women's match of the year. Keep going, Jason. What do you got?
Once again, off of the radar because I do watch Stardom, and I watch Stardom a lot. My knee-jerk reaction would have been Bayley versus Sasha coming in, but I had to stop and think about it because there's plenty of Stardom matches to watch, and it's all women's wrestling, so it would have been kind of hard for me to not have a Stardom match as the women's match of the year. Nonetheless, I do digress. Arona versus Mayu Itani, which to me was the match of the year. If you have not had a chance to watch this and you don't have a Stardom subscription, which I suspect most people don't, go back and go on YouTube. I believe it was February of 2020. Stardom has a YouTube channel. It's about a 25 minute match, and it is easily the hardest hitting match I think I've seen two women have in wrestling for 2020. Arguably one of the better matches I think I've ever seen as a women's match. I'm not going to gush into it too much. I just suggest you take your ass to YouTube, check it out, and judge for yourself.
Zach, who you got?
I actually had a Stardom match. I don't have the subscription, but this match got on my radar because of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and I managed to Google and find the show. Jason Price saw it. It was December 20th, so it was like right at the cutoff of the year. The Osaka Cinderella show. It was Julia versus how do you say it? Shuri? I don't know her. I know Julia.
Yeah, the Syuri is how I would pronounce it, but I could be wrong too.
And I wasn't watching it with much sound, even to hear the Japanese commentators like say her name, because it's not like there's a lot of fans or anything. So, but anyway, just when I was watching, I wasn't watching it with sound. But these women like kicked ass. It was a 30-minute draw, so spoiler alert, total Broadway, and super cool finish. But these ladies, beat the shit out of each other. Great athleticism. Just I had seen Julia work before, but the other gal was like totally new to me, and I don't get to watch Stardom as much as I would like to. But that match ruled.
Both in the same faction, so that's also another tidbit of information that was on my list as one of 3 picks. So I can't say I disagree with you there.
Man, like I thought about this long and hard. I wanted to put Sasha versus Bayley in there, which might need to go in there, and this is probably recency bias, I'm going to go Rhea Ripley versus Io Shirai. I mean, the one on NXT Wednesday night, the main evented, like, that was better than every match. That was better than any Bayley-Sasha match on the main roster. Bayley and Sasha had a great match, an all-time match in NXT when they were allowed to do NXT things. They're just not allowed to do NXT things anymore. Charlotte sometimes gets a little bit of leeway, but I'm going to go with
Charlotte gets a lot of leeway.
I'm going to go with Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai, and I have to admit that might have been this year. I don't think so, though. No, that was last year. Okay. So Rhea versus Io, Arona versus Mayu Itani, and Osaka Cinderella. Is that right, Zach?
Sorry, Osaka Cinderella was the show. It was Julia, which is Giulia, versus Syuri, Syuri.
Man, you would think that I hosted a wrestling podcast.
They brought a couple beefers with them.
All right, so we're down to the last two here, Zach, and I will let you go first. We have the male wrestler of the year. Who do you got?
I have one name, and it is Jon Moxley. The dude is ultimate professional, like totally embodies like what I want out of professional wrestling oftentimes, which is just a badass dude being a badass who's like genuinely like pretty funny. Seems like a dude that I would like to have a beer with. Totally killed it in Japan. Adapted to being in WWE for so long. Made the best of that situation. Knew that he could do better. Went out and proved it. Look forward to seeing him every single week. Total badass champion. For me, it was Jon Moxley.
I'll let Jason go last because I only had one name written down also, and it was also Jon Moxley. And to piggyback off of what Zach said, not only did I look forward to him every week, not only is he, if not the best promo going, one of the best promos going, and he gets a lot of promo time. He was also asked basically to carry the belt of a brand new promotion that needed a solid back to work off of. He needed to put over the entire promotion as the champ, as the promotion was trying to get off the ground, and you can't argue with the job that he did. He came in from WWE. He was a known quantity, and, we give Jericho a lot of credit for doing with AEW what he's done. Jon Moxley deserves just as much. I've been vocal on this podcast. He's not my favorite. He's not my favorite in-ring worker. But he's a tremendous professional wrestler. Moxley gets my vote for male wrestler of the year. If I was going to put in another one, it would probably be McIntyre, just because McIntyre had a hell of a year. But it's Moxley. Who you got, Jason?
Those are the two names I wrote. Those are the two names I would agree with. In order, I wrote Moxley first, Drew second. I just don't think you can even say any name but Jon Moxley. And I was thinking, really, I think it's clearly he is that guy. He is 2020's male wrestler of the year. And I don't think it's – I love New Japan. Love it. There's nobody in New Japan that can match what Moxley's done. Definitely not Impact. Love Impact too. No disrespect. WWE, it's been the year of Drew, and AEW has been in the year of Moxley. If you put them up next to each other, Drew's had an amazing year. I mean, amazing. Moxley's just carried the fucking mail, and it's hard to say that he... If you don't like Jon Moxley in ring, which I can totally understand that, he's one of the best promos. So, I mean, there's a lot of, emotional investment coming into the match. Then at that point, the match itself is subjective. Either you like it or you don't. But you can't say that he hasn't had a great year. You can't say he's not one of the best promos in the business. It's hard for me to accept any other answer except for Moxley.
Also, we talked about how MJF kind of made the dig at him about being a Stone Cold, cosplayer. He is, his character as a babyface is the natural, I would say, progression or the natural descendant, maybe to say, of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's
Agreed.
a badass babyface that doesn't put up with shit from anybody. So, it's across the board. Moxley now comes.
If you want three names, if you just for the sake of parallelism, I think Shingo Takagi gets an honorable mention, also because I'm a mark, but he did have the winningest record in New Japan in 2020, and he put on some absolute bangers. So
Okay.
I want three.
I do listen to a New Japan only podcast, and both hosts on there have both of them picked Hiromu as their wrestler of the year.
Okay. No, I don't have a problem with that either.
Yeah. So,
This is the beefer.
match of the year. Jason, You went last there, so I'll let you go first here.
Appreciate you. Hang on.
I think I have an idea what yours is going to be, though.
Oh, are we doing women's or men's?
We already did women's.
Oh, Doug. Well, then shit. Men's is it's really one answer. I'm sorry. Call me what you wanna. You know what it is. Yeah, thank you.
Naito Okada?
Yeah, it's hands down. I don't boo-hoo, okay, at any... I mean, unless it's like people dying close to me in my heart is like when you catch me crying, okay? This match finally just was a 2-year emotional release because I thought that this was going to happen the year before and they pulled the rug underneath me. And then I got people in my head telling me that it's never going to happen. Naito's never going to be champion again. And it messed with me. The fact that you kind of get past Jay White is a good start, but then you have like the final boss waiting for you in Okada. I'm sorry. Like I said, you can call me what you wanted. That to me, you've seen better wrestling matches in ring, but the story for me is the hook. And that's what got me in. That's what made me boo-hoo at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, whatever the fuck it was in 2020, earlier this year or earlier last year. Like I said, for me, I'm a mark. Naito Okada is match of the year.
All right. Zach, who you got?
I'm also a mark. The Okada Shingo match at G1 was just outrageously good. And
love this pick.
Shingo managed to get the money clip over. That to me is a testament to
Leave that man alone. He gonna use that money clip.
Yeah, I know. Like, I mean, it's a cool name and everything. It's just like, and just every time he puts it on, for me, it just kills the vibe. But Shingo's eyes bugging out of his head as he realizes that he's caught and he can't get out. Just absolutely excellent. I almost went. Actually, I won't do that because I don't want to step on Bill's toes. We can give runners up like after Bill gives like.
Yeah, that's what we should have done the whole time. You're right. Thank you for being so courteous. I think it's funny that Okada's in both of your matches, even though I think this is, you could almost consider this a down year for Okada, which is kind of funny considering he was in both of your final matches. Mine would have been Naito Okada. You know, I've mentioned the match between Taichi and Ibushi several times on this podcast, not just this one, but in prior weeks, just because it was so innovative and so much different than anything that you see. I've said before, I'm never gonna forget that match because it's the only match you'll ever see that's just all kicks.
No shit.
And it was completely riveting. For the sake of throwing another one in there, I can't remember if we talked about this match on the show, but you and I might have watched it in the background while we were doing the podcast. Ilya Dragunov versus Walter in October on NXT UK was a 30-minute fucking banger, 5 stars. I mean, Walter beat the shit out of Dragunov, and Dragunov, his chest was redder than mine was when Kurt Stallion chopped me twice. I mean, he was like almost bleeding from the chops. It was a very fun match. I know that a lot of people loved it. I went back and watched it today in the afternoon because I remember liking it. I read it on a couple year-end lists this year, and I went back and watched it, and they were right. In front of an NXT crowd, it would have blown the roof off the place. It
Agreed.
really would have, and it was in front of nobody.
Right.
It was one of those matches in front of nobody. But for the sake of having 3 matches out there, I'll put Walter versus Dragunov, which also is 2 years in a row when Walter has been in the match that makes the finals. Walter against those little guys, like him versus Tyler Bate.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a tremendous wrestler, and he's one of those guys that I kind of hope he doesn't come over and start being in matches all the time because I like kind of having it as a,
The special attraction or whatever.
Oh, yeah, you can have another Walter match as a treat. So the final three that we have was Walter versus Dragunov, Naito versus Okada from Wrestle Kingdom, and Okada versus Shingo from the G1. All great picks.
Just a quick honorable mention because it was fairly recently.
Let's give all our honorable mentions. Yes.
Despy versus Hiromu, well, Best of the Super Juniors final, where Despy unmasked, completely unmasked. A, that could be an easy mark-out moment, alternate. But B, just back to the point, the match itself was a fucking off of the chain again. I mean, it was a nice cherry on top of the Best of the Super Juniors tournament, one of my favorite tournaments in all of professional wrestling. To me, that was easily a nice runner-up for Match of the Year if you wanted to throw another candidate out there.
Any runners-up, Zach?
I did. It was really hard for me to pick my top one because I listed 4 matches. Okada defeating Ibushi, Wrestle Kingdom 14, day 1. That to me is one of the best matches in any of the Tokyo Dome matches that I've ever seen. Just outrageous, and I cannot wait until they heat up Okada a little bit and we get to see those guys go at it for these belts again in a big match feel. That thing was just. It would have worked anywhere, but the fact that it was at the Dome, at the beginning of the first time there was ever 2 nights, and it was the main event, and they just tore the house down. Even after we had amazing matches from Hiromu Takahashi and Will Ospreay and Naito and Jay White, it was outrageously good. And then I had Walter defeating Ilya Dragunov as well. That match actually benefited from not having a crowd because the slaps were just that much more impactful.
I get it, dude. I get it, but correct me, that was on NXT UK, correct?
Yeah, on a regular episode. It was not a takeover.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If the British crowd would have been in front of that match, we would still be talking about it. It would be a totally different thing.
The British crowd rules. But they have good matches in WXW in progress that I was able to go back and watch on the WWE Network. And they actually, that NXT UK match really kind of plays off of, especially that more recent progress match, shared some of the spots. But this was by far the best of the bunch that I saw. And then also AJ Bryant, just because I feel obligated to put a main roster match. I watched those 10 best matches of WWE that they put together. It's a 5.5 hour thing on the network, and I'll just put it on. And that AJ Styles Daniel Bryan SmackDown match in June was awesome.
Okay, I agree with that. That's fair.
I'd honestly say if I put a main roster match on there, it probably would have been Reigns versus Uso at the Hell in a Cell.
That's a good one.
I mean, it's less with wrestling. It has more to do with the storyline. And the storyline has been pretty on point up to this point.
So, guys,
this is the Beefer.
That was the Beefers 2000. That was 2021 for the year 2020. We are going to put this up on Twitter as soon as we can. You can get on there and vote at BFR Pod, and from there you can find all of us at BFR Zach with an H, at BFR JCB, at BFR Lucha Chris, at BFR Bill. Guys, a lot of this was fun. A lot of this was sad. A lot of it was, quite frankly, kind of boring. So,
dude, wasn't that bad, man? 2020 is a year of just transition, man.
I remember one time that Ali G said that when he was interviewing Newt Gingrich, and it was the funniest thing I've ever heard. So, but yes, this is fun. Please tell your friends, listen, share, subscribe, repeat the BFR. We know there's a lot of podcasts to listen to, so we got some birthdays this week.
Who's getting old?
This is banned from Ringside.
The aforementioned Maurice is 38 this week. Tully Blanchard is 67. The Honky Tonk Man is 68. Michelle McCool is 41. Jay Briscoe is 37. Road Warrior Hawk, 64. Evil, who got absolutely crushed on
Roasted
this
tonight.
podcast.
Oh, God.
Couldn't have gotten crushed more.
That poor bastard.
I don't feel too bad for him. He's only 34. And
Happy birthday.
Sasha Banks is 29. Hey, everybody, we know there's tons of podcasts listened to, so we appreciate you guys listening to ours. For F&B Eatery.
Check.
For Bill's Beard Company. Hit me up.
Check.
We need the money.
That's right, baby.
For Lucha Chris.
Check.
For Murray Man.
Check.
For Vice.
Check.
For Two Beers. Zach Pullman. For
Check.
JCB.
Fuck right back.
Bill Veggie. Everybody.
Check.
Support your local wheel dealers.
Check.
Support your local restaurants.
Check.
Black Lives Matter. And
Check,
boo
check.
the heat.